And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Mock Draft Mondays here with the High Low Sports Podcast. We are just about to enter April, which means we are just about a little less than a month away from the NFL draft. So we're going to continue another round of mock drafts. Here with the first round, what we're going to do this week is we're going to involve trades as well. So you know what? If there is an opportunity for somebody to move up that we think makes sense or move back, we're going to go and take it. But we're out of the gate, pick number one. We're not going to chalking this one up until proven otherwise. Cam Ward, your number one overall pick to the Tennessee Titans, a team that very badly needs a quarterback. I think they're still going to take their guy. We're going to stick with that until we have a reason to prove otherwise. Maybe it ends up being Shador, but there's no reason to change that. But pick number two, the Cleveland Browns. A lot of different interesting directions they could go, especially with the owner more or less saying, we screwed up with Deshaun Watson. We'll have to see. So I think that does bring Shador into play. That being said, though, I do think they're going to look at Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. I think they're going to look to take one of those blue chip guys, see if they could tread water at quarterback one more year. Maybe Kirk Cousins trading for him is on the table, but we're going to stick with Abdul Carter coming over for now as well. Pick number three, New York Giants. Interesting. I do think Shador Sanders is very much in play as well. I still continue to look at that quarterback room that they put together. I'm like, where does Shador fit here? Like, why did they bring in Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston if they were going to draft a guy? Do they think he's not going to be there? That leaves a handful of questions. So, what we're going to do with the Giants is we are actually going to take Travis Hunter. We are going to say they go with the very versatile corner slash receiver to play him as I imagine more as a receiving option to go with Malik Neighbors. Maybe even corner than spotlights a receiver. I don't know. They'll find a way to use him. He's a blue chip prospect. I think they bring in Travis Hunter. Pick number four, New England Patriots. I like Will Campbell. I like Ashton Jeanty. I like both those guys here. I think they could both be very useful. I think I like that they brought in Stephon Diggs to give kind of that number one-ish receiver for him, someone who could separate. So I think that will open it up to grab an offensive lineman. I like Will Campbell a lot. I think they will too. I think the arm length, quote unquote, tomfoolery won't be an issue. So we're going to go with Will Campbell to New England Patriots. You got to keep Drake May upright and healthy. Pick number five, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They need a lot. They're kind of a mess right now. They've done a lot of offseason moving and wheeling and dealing. But one thing that I think could be interesting is you have Brian Thomas Jr. You did shake up the receiving core a little bit, trading Christian Kirk, etc. How about Ted McMillan here? Another really big receiver you could put him on the outside. You'd have two X receivers, which is why that doesn't necessarily fit. But I putting it out there is I think Jacksonville could be a trade spot as well. Maybe they lean back and go after a Matthew Golden, Ibuka, etc. But we're going to say for now, we're going to have them stick and pick. I don't think anyone's looking to trade up here. So we're going to give them Mason Graham, the monster nose tackle defensive tackle out of Michigan. Run stopper they could put next to Josh Hines Allen as well as Trayvon Walker and just clog the middle. Pick number six, the Las Vegas Raiders. Ashton Jeanty has kind of become the hot pick for them here. It's kind of been the guy that a lot of them have been talking about. Think that that could be the move to be made there. We're going to have a little bit of fun with this one. So what we're going to do with them is we're going to say they are going to look to trade back. So let's get to the Raiders here. Raiders will be trading pick number six. And we're actually going to have, let's scroll up. We're going to have San Francisco decide to come up and we'll say they throw in like a 3 and like a next year's 2 or just something. Like they find a way to make it work either way. But point is, we're going to have them come up and as soon as this, let's see if the simulator wants to not be broken really quick. Let's throw 1 and 3. We'll just go with that then. We'll just go straight across. So 49ers climb up the board. I think it's going to be so they can grab Tyler Warren. We're going to say to pair with George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, they come up to get Tyler Warren to run the. I'm just kidding. That would have been too much. I'm going to say it's to get Armin Membu, the offensive tackle out of Missouri. They need offensive line help badly, especially if they're about to pay Brock Purdy. You need to get some guys in front of him. It's Trent Williams or bust at this point with the offensive line. So I think Armin Membu comes in out of Missouri. They trade up to get the tackle. That would have been fun, though. I had you guys in the first half of that, though. You're not going to lie. Like, I had you guys thinking that they were going to have Tyler Warren, George Kittle, and Kyle Juszczyk. That'd just be absolute insanity. But here, looking at pick number 7, we have the New York Jets. Scroll back. I don't think there's anyone back here that's going to necessarily look to trade up, so we're going to stick and pick with the Jets. Shador is very, very much in play, but this is where I do like Tyler Warren. I think giving Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson, Tyler Warren, Breece Hall, putting all the weapons you can around him, so kind of more or less if Justin Fields is your guy, you're going to find out. And if he's not the guy, well, it's not going to be due to lack of weapons around him. There's not going to be any questions. Carolina Panthers, pick number 8. Ted McMillan is a interesting idea here. I'm not going to go there though. I like Jalen Walker. I like Shamar Stewart, Michael Williams. I think these are all really good fits. We look at corner. They do need corner help. I think Will Johnson and Jedi Barron are very much in play. Safety, Malachi Starks, Xavier Watts, Nick Emmanwori. They need a lot of things, honestly. They really do need a lot. I want to give him Ted McMillan here because it makes a lot of sense, but you did just bring in Xavier Legette, both big X receiver style guys. So we're going to stick with defense. They do need to replace losing Brian Burns. Jalen Walker from Georgia makes the most sense. I know Michael Williams and Shamar Stewart make a lot of noise closer to draft time, but we're going to stick with Jalen Walker. Let's see. And next up, we got New Orleans at pick number 9. It'd be the most New Orleans thing ever to take Shedeur here. I really, really do think they are not out of the market for it. So we scroll back. There's not really a whole lot of teams I think would trade up here. Pittsburgh, that depends on the Aaron Rodgers scenario. This is where it gets kind of interesting with Shedeur. If he starts to slip a little bit, we're going to go ahead and send him to New Orleans. If he does get this far, they converted a lot of Derek Carr's salary to a signing bonus, I believe. So if worse comes to worse, they should be able to get rid of him next season if they need to. So we're going to say Shedeur heads to New Orleans. Not the best move. I don't know. They have a lot of holes, but I think that gives it. If he's there, New Orleans is just going to stick and pick. They're not going to overthink it. Pick number 10, the Chicago Bears. We're all thinking it, aren't we? We're going to do it. Ashton Jeanty is going to go to the Chicago Bears. Ben Johnson, he saw the ability of having 2 running backs with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Here he'll have Ashton Jeanty and DeAndre Swift. Neither one of them is nearly as explosive as Jahmyr Gibbs, so it's not a perfect apples to apples, but you could utilize Ashton Jeanty as the battering ram, your main workhorse running back, then switch it up with DeAndre Swift and his ability out of the backfield. So we're going to take Ashton Jeanty to the Chicago Bears. Las Vegas Raiders, who they might have taken if they stuck at pick number 6, we're going to give them Ted McMillan. Big outside receiver for Geno Smith, complements Brock Bowers, who's going to control the middle of the field. Jacoby Myers, who could play a little bit of the Z slot, various options. Ted McMillan gives you that big body, win one-on-one on the outside boundary. So Ted McMillan to the Raiders. Dallas misses out on getting Ashton Jeanty, but I don't think they're necessarily out of the running back market or really any of the market yet. I think they are very much in play for a lot of things. That being said, we're going to have another trade here. We're going to continue to just have a little bit of fun since this is the first week we're bringing trades. And I think after we get through the first handful of picks, there could be a lot of moving around as needed. I'm going to say the Cowboys and the Bengals will strike a deal. Maybe something like this. Ignore the trade compensation because I did not set this to auto trades, but we're going to have Cincinnati climb up the board. I'm going to say that they're looking at defensive end, and I'm going to give them Shamar Stewart. With what's going on, if they bring back Trey Hendrickson, that'll be nice, but I don't know if it'll be a long-term deal, short-term, or if they do have to trade him. That is to be determined. Maybe we could say he's part of the trade that just gets up here. I don't know. Whatever it might be, they need defensive help. They spent so much money on offense, they got to get after the quarterback. I think Shamar Stewart is a incredibly talented player who's a lot of the advanced stats aren't as favorable when you look at him. But I do think he was very effective last year with that leg injury that he was dealing with. I think he's very athletic. So Shamar Stewart, I say they trade up to go get. Miami now at pick number 13. Will Johnson, Kelvin Banks, Jedi Barron, all of these are wonderful fits for them. They need defensive help across the board. They do have to replace Javon Holland, which is where I like Malachi Starks. In my opinion, his last year's tape wasn't that bad, but it wasn't nearly as good as the year before, which is why I think the draft, some of the draft experts have him wavering a bit, but I still think he's awesome. I think this is one, don't overthink it. Him and Will Johnson are my 2 don't overthink it prospects of the entire draft. So we're going to say Malachi Starks to the Dolphins. Next up, we got the Colts, who I given Will Johnson on a few different occasions, but after how active they were in the secondary over the offseason, I think this is where they will pass on corner for now because they did so much. I mean, Jedi Barron would make a lot of sense as like the predecessor for Kenny Moore. Will Johnson would be awesome. You have 2 awesome outside corners to pair him with Ward, but we're going to say they're going to stick with defense. I'm going to say that Jahad Campbell is very much in play for the Colts. So much so that I think they're willing to trade back even. I'm looking at some of these teams back here. I think there are some teams that would be willing to come up. Maybe someone like Denver, Pittsburgh, the Chargers might be willing to come up for Will Johnson. And you know what? I talked myself into it. So the Colts are going to trade back because we know how much the GM there loves to stockpile picks. And with the Chargers, I think Colston Loveland is very much in play, but Asante Samuel Jr. has not been re-signed yet. So that makes me wonder if maybe they're looking to, I don't know, climb up the board, bring in a different corner, maybe somebody that Jim Harbaugh knows very well. And Will Johnson Makes a lot of sense there. They brought in Najee Harris. I think they will continue to kind of slide by with the offensive weapons and bring in Will Johnson to play the corner out of Michigan, because as far as I'm aware, they have not re-signed Asante Samuel Jr., and he is still a remaining free agent. If they bring him back, it maybe changes things, but it looks like he's going to be going somewhere else. So we're going to say they bring in Will Johnson to play corner. Next up, Atlanta. They finally, for the long overdue, they addressed the edge position in the first round. Mykel Williams, the edge out of Georgia. I say it every week. He has the freakiest wingspan, it feels like, in the entire draft. Absolute athlete. A lot of remnants to Trayvon Walker, the Georgia end from a few years ago. So we're going to take Mykel Williams to Atlanta. Arizona, pick number 16. I'm curious because I like all those two Texas picks right out of the gate. I like Mike Green, the edge, as well. They still need some defensive help and some offensive line help. I think Kelvin Banks is a really, really good value here. But we're going to still go with Jedi Barron because I think Jonathan Gannon's going to look at the defense. He's going to remember what he had in Philly with the versatile corners. Jedi Barron, you could put at nickel. He could play a little outside. You could put him all over the field defensively, and he'll make plays. So Jedi Barron goes to Arizona to help that defense. Next up, Dallas at pick number 17. We're going to go with Kelvin Banks. We're going to go back-to-back Longhorns. I think they're going to try and fortify that offensive line. We do see Zach Martin retiring. Tyron Smith has left. The offensive line has deteriorated a little bit over the years. It's still pretty good, but not to what it was when they were winning 12 games consistently. And I think they will look to get back to that. Kelvin Banks at tackle for the Cowboys, at 17. 18, the Seattle Seahawks. They have a lot of work to do. You have Cooper Kupp coming in to replace DK Metcalf after trading him. So him and JSN do a lot of similar things. It's a very interesting setup they have here. They really need to work on the offensive line. Like that offensive line got Geno attacked a lot last year, and I think Josh Simmons makes a ton of sense. Get Charles Cross healthy, bring in Josh Simmons, move the pieces around as you need. If you want to run the ball with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, you need to be able to hold up on the offensive line. Josh Simmons from Ohio State makes a ton of sense. They got to get that unit firing on all cylinders. Tampa Bay at pick number 19. They need a little bit on defense as well. I like Mike Green, the edge from Marshall. I think he makes a ton of sense here, and that's where we're going to go. Get after the passer. Since the Super Bowl run when they had JPP, Shaq Barrett, and squad really getting after quarterbacks, they haven't been able to fully match that sense. So we're going to go with Mike Green from Marshall to help get after the quarterback. Pick number 20 for the Denver Broncos. I love this pick that we're going to do here. We're going to go Colston Loveland. Tight end. Denver kind of needs a tight end. I know they brought in Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram could split out and play slot, and Colston Loveland. They could both be on the field at the same time. There's a lot of ways for them to both be on the field at the same time. So we're going to take Colston Loveland, a dynamic tight end option to play with Denver. And you know how much Sean Payton's going to love to use him, and they're going to have a lot of fun. We saw what he did with Jimmy Graham and squad back in New Orleans. Next up, Pittsburgh at pick number 21. Hear me out on this one. Just hear me out on this one. We're going to go running back. We're going to go Omarion Hampton. They need some running back help. No more Najee Harris. Jaylen Warren's nice, but you got to have somebody else to go with him. Omarion Hampton is awesome. If it wasn't for Ashton Jeanty, he would be RB1 in the class. I think he's worthy of a first-round pick, too. So Omarion Hampton heading to Pittsburgh. Taking a running back in the first round for the second time in 5 years. Next up, we got the Indianapolis Colts after the trade back. They need linebacker help. You have one starting linebacker in Zaire Franklin. You trade EJ Speed signed with the Texans. I do think Jahad Campbell makes a ton of sense. Nick Emenwari is a perfect fit for what the Colts GM loves. But with them signing Cam Bynum, I think safety they'll feel comfortable with. And I know he could kind of spotlight as a sub linebacker, etc. We're going to go with Jahad Campbell. They love linebackers. They love getting him at a discount. But I think Jahad Campbell being a first-round grade at this point, they're going to go ahead and take it. Green Bay at pick number 23. This is where they need to get after the quarterback, and they need corner help, especially if Jair Alexander does end up going somewhere else. So far, it sounds like he might still be there, but they do need to get after the quarterback. There's some very good options here. Offensive line, there are some good options. Receiver, we all know how much they still need receiver because you have 9 receiver ones that we saw last year. I am going to go ahead and give them a Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. Kenny Clark, even though he's not that old, he has been around for a very long time. I think this helps fortify your run defense, especially when you're going to have to deal with teams like the Eagles, teams that will run the heck out of the ball. We know the Lions are going to. We know the Bears' run game is going to improve. Kenneth Grant gives you another guy to help clog up the run. Minnesota, pick number 24. They have been incredibly busy this offseason. I almost think that this is another very likely potential trade back spot, but we're going to have them sit and pick here for now. They have addressed a ton of needs in free agency where they could take whatever they want here. I really like this Nick Emenwari pick. I think I had it last week on Mock Draft Mondays too. He's so versatile. A lot of Derwin James-ish comparisons. You give Brian Flores somebody like that, my goodness, what he's been, especially what he's doing with Van Ginkel and some of those other guys, moving them all over the place. Harrison Smith still making plays. Nick Emenwari just makes so much sense and feels like pure chaos in that defense. Houston pick number 25, another likely potential trade back option. But with arguably the best interior offensive lineman and Tyler Booker available, I'm going to say that's where they go. Just, you got to keep CJ Stroud upright. That's case foremost number one, and I think that's where they'll stick and pick. 26, the Los Angeles Rams. Another situation where I could very much see them trading back here. They did rebuild that defensive line pretty effectively last year, so I think looking at the draft board, there's a lot of, they could trade back a lot, but right here we're scrolling down. We're just going to scroll down a bit. You need to bring in Devontae Adams. He's going to be probably your main X receiver. Puka's kind of like your Z motion around receiver that could work out of the slot. I like what Luther Burden can bring to you as a down the field threat who can work out of the slot. Obviously, Matthew Golden works just as well. I think he has the true speed factor, but I can see them going with Luther Burden, just the play style where he's like a deep threat out of the slot while Puka and Devontae do some of the other mid-range and short out routes, mid-crossing routes, backside digs, etc. Luther Burden can absolutely take the top off from the slot, so that's where we're going to go for the Rams, who do things slightly differently, but in a way that still makes sense. And this is going to be a very Ravens pick here at pick number 27. James Pierce, the edge out of Tennessee, could go much higher, would make a lot of sense. But he's just a really good player that slips to him. They just take the best available player on the board, arguably, or whoever they have highest rated, and that will be James Pierce. Pick number 28, the way this draft board is falling, Detroit, I think, is also a very likely option here to trade back. Let's go ahead and take a look. Is there anyone that would make sense that come back up into the first round, maybe at the top at this point? We'll get to Detroit. Let's check. As I'm looking at now, Arizona is probably not. Atlanta, no. Doesn't look like there's anyone I could see really wanting to come back into the first round at this point. So we're going to go ahead and sit and pick with Detroit for now. We're going to let them go ahead and stick here. I like the Walter Nolan pick. He is a first-round grade caliber guy on a lot of boards. I think he could cause a lot of chaos on the interior for that defensive line. So we're going to go Walter Nolan to the Detroit Lions. Commanders at pick number 29. This is where we're going to do it. We are going to have ourselves a trade back. Let's go ahead and get Washington. Let's find Washington. Why are they not popping up where I need them to? Let's see. There we go, Washington. Washington's going to trade back from pick 29. Let's go ahead and find who we're looking for here. We're going to find the New York Football Giants. Are going to find their way back up into the first round. I'm just kidding. They're not going to do that. It sounds really good in theory, though, doesn't it? Like, we're actually going to go with the Cleveland Browns. They're going to come back up into the first round. We're going to say they'll do they have an extra third, maybe something like that, then take the fourth. They'll find a way. They're going to climb back up, basically 5 or so picks. And it looks like the draft simulator is going to break. So just presume this is going to the Browns. We're going to say they come back up to get Jackson Dart, the quarterback from Mississippi, get that 5th-year option on him. He probably will get to sit this first year behind whatever they do with Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson if he comes back, etc. The draft, once again, this is Jackson Dart going to the Cleveland Browns at pick number 29 after the trade back. It says Washington, but that is just because the simulator is glitched. Pick number 30, Buffalo Bills. I like Matthew Golden, pure speedster. You have Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, an X, and a guy that works out of the slot. Let's get a guy, or in his case, he could work out of the slot, or the Z and Khalil Shakir. Let's get Matthew Golden, someone to just absolutely take the top off, run straight, run really fast, and he can still run the route tree on top of it. Kansas City, pick number 31. Offensive line is the way to go. Gray Zabel, a first-round grade on a lot of boards, a very high-level player coming from North Dakota State, might slip him to drop a little bit, but it's exactly what the doctor ordered for Kansas City. Philadelphia is another contender to trade back, and this is probably honestly more likely to trade back than what we saw with the Commanders. But with Derek Carman sitting there, we know how much they love to reload that defensive line. That would make a ton of sense. We know how much they always invest on that. They reload it every single year. That being said, I do see this as another situation where we will have Philadelphia trade back. They won't go too far, though. I think they're still going to be relatively early in the first round. Somewhere like Vegas, I could see them trying to come up. Let's do something like this here. Maybe that's enough, and then 4. All right, just ignore the compensation. We're just getting it so that it will accept. And once again, we're going to have it glitched. So this pick is going to the Raiders. The Raiders are coming back up into the first round. We saw them take Ted McMillan earlier. I think this is going to be, I do think quarterback is very much in play here, but I think with the fact that they have Geno, et cetera, they're just going to come back into the first round. I'm going to look at Derek Carr, the defensive tackle out of Oregon. You compare him with Christian Wilkins and them, but defensively they are pretty solid. So we're going to go to corners. I like Siobhan Ravel. I think he's a first-round caliber corner from East Carolina, and I'm going to say the Raiders trade back up into the first round to go get him. Ignore some of this, the mock draft simulator glitch for some of the trades, but this is what we have for Mock Draft Mondays, the first one involving trades. Let us know in the comments down below who you think is going to go where and why, and let us know what your thoughts are on the upcoming draft. I think it's going to be one with a lot of movement in the middle and back half of the first rounds, but if you see it somewhere differently, go ahead and let us know down below, and we'll see you all again next time for Mock Draft Mondays.